Hello, I am Dr. Mirela Cerneanu, and I welcome you to the Wellness Optimizing Warrior MD podcast, the WOW MD podcast. I am not your typical wellness coach, and this is not a typical wellness podcast. Here, I'll discuss educational facts about health, hormones, intimacy, anti-aging, and beauty trends, all very hot topics, to empower you to make great choices when it comes to your health and to your body. I want you to go, wow, I did not know that. Or, wow, this is going to make a great difference for me. Our healthcare system is broken and it needs a revolution. You and I can start one today. I am willing to share my knowledge with the world if you're willing to listen. Let's get started. Hello, listener, and welcome back to another episode. In the past 3 episodes, I talked quite a little bit about medical experts, wellness experts, the medical team. So I'd like to stay with this topic and actually talk about the healthcare system. So the next couple of episodes will be dedicated to how the healthcare system is run in the United States right now, provide some valuable information about it, and make some analogies with other healthcare systems that exist in other countries in the world. So I'm going to dive right into it. All the healthcare insurance plans that currently exist in the United States are privately funded and run and managed just like any other business corporation in the United States. And I hope you know this information. They're not there for you to support you or to cover you. They're there to be profitable. These entities that pay for your health insurance expenses do so only according to their rules and regulations. The reason why I decided to do an episode on this topic is because as a physician who accepts insurance companies, we accept Medicare and a few of the major PPOs, I find that 90% of the insurance patients, maybe 99%, have no idea what they sign up for when they purchase their insurance plan. And they show up at the office with an insurance card, not knowing anything about what their insurance plan covers. Now, here's the interesting thing. They do expect us, the doctor, the clinic, the front office staff, to know that. Maybe because we are their first point of contact, and they feel that we should, and somehow we will know the details of their plan. However, considering the huge variety of plans that are available out there on the market right now, that is impossible. And you as a consumer should know this and remember this. It's impossible for your doctor, your clinic, the medical staff that serves the clinic or the doctor to know the details of your insurance plan. So I hear this question a lot. Is my insurance going to cover the lab, the visit? I only want to get what my insurance covers. Is my insurance going to cover this procedure? Is my insurance going to cover this medication? The answer is, I don't know, because when you buy insurance as a consumer, you sign a contract and you have a covenant with your insurance plan to cover certain things. And the answer resides with your insurance plan, not with your doctor. What we can tell the patient as a doctor is maybe yes, maybe no. Most of the time, this coverage is a determination that your plan will make, but only after the service is provided and billed for example, for a visit or a procedure. And this is something that is very hard to grasp for the medical consumer, for the patient. So please know this. Your doctor has no idea if your plan will cover your expenses. Whatever expenses the doctor will offer or will provide, even if that doctor is in network with your plan. The type of coverage you have is a clear-cut agreement between you, the patient, and your plan. So you should always call your insurance and ask, hey, is my service going to get covered? And maybe you can find out from the practice what type of service you're planning to have. Because the problem is that type of verification of benefits is expected to happen on the side of the medical practice, not you, the consumer. We, the medical practice, the doctor, the back office staff, the front office staff, we can make significant effort to assign staff for 30, 60 minutes, however long it will take to verify benefits for a specific higher cost procedure or device. But ultimately, the insurance will just simply come back saying, yes, you have an authorization to proceed or an approval, but it's not guarantee payment for procedure. Payment for procedure is determined only after services are billed. I really don't want to talk more about this issue for now. I'll just put a pin in it. Maybe we can come back to it later. Let's come back to talking about the insurance plans. There's a very small percentage of men and women who are very savvy about their insurance plan. That is not the norm. If you're extremely savvy and you know all there is to know about the healthcare system, maybe you don't need to listen to this, or maybe you want to listen to see what I have to say about it. But this episode is for the rest of us, the people who are not always in the know. This episode is for people who are extremely confused, in the dark, who have no idea what insurance plan they purchased, or for young men and women whose parents have them as dependents on that plan, who are in their early 20s. They show up to an office and say, I want services that are covered by my insurance. And the same goes for spouses who simply show up at the practice with the health plan under the name of their spouse, and they have no idea what the plan covers or not. Now, you might be the one who purchased the plan, and you did so, you purchased the plan knowing that you have to have insurance. So you might have purchased the plan that fit your budget for your monthly premium, not understanding that the most affordable plan for your budget might come with some serious limitations. I want to talk about buying health insurance a little bit. Buying and having health insurance is absolutely no different than buying and having insurance for your car or for your house. If your car breaks, you have an accident, you have a deductible. Once you pay it, the insurance company takes care of the rest, fixes your car, or you can buy a new one. If there are major repairs required for your house, you should already know that your insurance for the house will cover as little as they can, and only according to their rules and regulations, which they specify in fine print in about 10 or more pages, which you're never going to read. And if you do want to read them, you might not understand half of the language that's being used. And you might not own a home, and this might go straight over your head. But there's absolutely the same when you buy a health insurance plan. There's lots of information that's not provided, that's not understood, and whoever gives you that plan or recommends the plan, like an insurance broker, will not have the time, the patience to educate you. So they will give you some basic information, which you will forget as soon as you go out the door or hang up the phone. But let me review some of the very basic facts that you should know about your insurance plan. The number one thing you need to know, other than how much the cost of the plan is every month, would be for that cost that you pay once a month to the insurance plan, what is your deductible? The amount of your deductible determines how much you actually have to pay out of pocket before your health insurance plan will cover anything. So the deductible, I'm going to repeat that information, is the amount that you have to pay out of pocket before your health insurance plan will cover medical services. And there are services that are always subject to your deductible. And there are some services and medical visits or even labs that will not be subject to the deductible, which means they will be covered 100% of the time, whether you have a low deductible or a high deductible. So if you're not sure what subject to deductible means, let me explain this and give you some examples. If you have a plan that covers, let's say, preventive healthcare, then those services are not subject to deductible. It means you can have an annual wellness check and basic labs without needing to pay anything once a year. It also means that if your insurance plan considers a colonoscopy for colon cancer screening or a mammogram for breast cancer screening preventive healthcare, then under that plan, you will not need to pay anything for these services. So that would be once a year a mammogram or once every 5 to 10 years for colonoscopy. You wouldn't pay. These are considered preventive and they're not subject to your deductible. So again, what makes a medical service subject to deductible? Which means you have to pay that deductible cost, whether it's $500 or $10,000, before your insurance will cover your service. So let's use the same examples I mentioned before, mammogram and colonoscopy. And let me explain how it could be entirely different and how these two services can be subject to deductible. If, for example, you had a screening mammogram, you require additional diagnostic imaging testing, or you went to the doctor and the doctor diagnosed a breast mass and determines that the need for your mammogram is no longer screening, is diagnostic, then you will now have to have a diagnostic test that's no longer a screening test, which will be subject to your deductible. So the cost of the diagnostic mammogram might be $500 or more, and you will have to pay it. But in your mind, you think, wait a minute, I have an annual mammogram for free. You do, as long as that mammogram is preventive and there's no abnormalities detected. If you have a screening mammogram that determines there's an abnormality and you need diagnostic additional testing, additional mammogram testing will likely be at out-of-pocket cost applied to your deductible. Let's use the other example for the colonoscopy. Most of the times, colonoscopies, if done for preventive reasons, I'm just going to have a colonoscopy because I want to know if I have polyps. And by removing the polyps, I'm decreasing my risk of colon cancer. So that makes the colonoscopy a preventive procedure, not subject to deductible. Interestingly enough, if the doctor finds a polyp, removes it, sends it to pathology, that service might not be covered because that's no longer a screening colonoscopy. Let me not get too much into the weeds here because I'll confuse you even more. I'm going to use a different example. If you, for example, are over the age of 40 and you suffer from rectal bleeding, or you have significant digestive issues with severe constipation, diarrhea, or even if you already had a colonoscopy a year or two prior, and now you need another colonoscopy, at this point, your colonoscopy is no longer preventive. It's a diagnostic test. This will be subject to your deductible. So let me use some numbers. If your deductible is, let's say, $5,000 and the colonoscopy is $3,500, you will have to pay the full amount because you have not met your deductible. That doesn't even include anesthesia fees and other fees that might happen when your colonoscopy is done. So long story short, this deductible number is very important and you need to know what it is. There are very few plans with low deductibles nowadays. So yes, your deductible could be as low as $500 or zero, but it could be as high as $10,000. Plans that have a $10,000 deductible are actually providing only catastrophic insurance. If you have that high of a deductible, you're really paying cash out of pocket for all your expenses because it's unlikely you're going to need to spend $10,000 in medical services unless you require hospitalization, surgery, or a very expensive procedure. So if you have a deductible that is over $5,000, unless you are over a certain age, maybe 50, let's use 50 as the cutoff. And if you're over 50, I don't mean anything by it. I'm also over 50. But at this point, things might happen. They're more likely to happen. So your need for medical expenses is going to be a lot higher than for a younger person. So at this point, if you choose a plan with a deductible that's that high, you might as well consider paying cash out of pocket and budgeting for it. And then choosing how exactly you spend your money. Choosing what doctor you would go to rather than restricting yourselves to a network of doctors that accept your plan that might not always provide the type of services you want and that you believe are good for you. like IV vitamin therapy or pellet hormone replacement therapy or peptide therapy or stem cells or PRP. And these are just a few of the anti-aging treatments that are out there that are in no form covered by insurance plans. Some expenses that are not covered by your plan can be counted towards your deductible only if the practice providing those services agrees to bill for them your insurance plan, and that service is denied. For example, the cost of hormone pellet therapy is likely to be covered 80 to 100% of the time for male pellet insertions for testosterone, but it's covered only 30 to 50% of the time or less when it comes to female pellet insertions for estradiol and testosterone. Clearly, men need testosterone for life, but women don't need estradiol after menopause, or so your health insurance plan deems or believes. In case you didn't get it, I am being sarcastic, as we know that the majority of women struggle with menopause and their quality of life plummets after 50 without hormones. And that's valid for many women. In spite of what your insurance company might say, we know that hormone replacement therapy is safe. And pellet hormone replacement therapy has been around for many decades. So labeling it as experimental by your insurance company as a reason to deny it is simply an excuse to avoid paying for it. However, if your doctor bills insurance and the service is denied as not covered, paying for this service can go towards your deductible, and this has enormous value. Most women who choose pellet hormone replacement therapy do so because of the huge improvement in the quality of life that they get only with pellet hormone therapy, and they're willing to pay for it anyway. If the practice who offers pellet hormone services is cash only and does not bill your insurance, then you, the client, will pay the full amount. And then when time comes for any other medical expenses, you will also have to pay your deductible. I personally started billing for pellet therapy again after 10 years of doing pellet therapy because I have a new biller that has experience in billing for such services. We believe that even for clients who get denied coverage for these services, having the payment they make count towards their deductible has great value. Many do not understand this and still prefer to pay out of pocket. And that's okay. It's their preference. Everything I said is very different for plans like Medicare or for plans that have very low deductible. If this service is not covered, it makes no sense to bill for it because you'll have to pay for it and you'll have to pay for everything else around it anyway. Let me close here and stop talking about deductibles, and let's go back to insurance plans. What most medical consumers do not understand when they buy an insurance plan is that once you buy this insurance plan, you are literally forced and limited in only getting to visit and consult with the doctors that are in network, that have agreed to participate in that plan. And there will be services, medical services, that will not be available to you from these in-network physicians. So by agreeing to a plan, it means you are limited to receiving medical services from the doctors you have access to and that the doctors you have access to will provide. Let me use simpler terms for this, and I'm going to use a very simple to understand example. Should you have a jaw fracture and should you need a highly specialized facial surgeon that is the only person that can do your surgery, and 3 other in-network doctors say, yep, you got to go see this guy. He's going to fix your problem. But this facial surgeon is out of network. You will need to contact your plan, even if your plan is a PPO, and obtain an authorization for the plan to pay an out-of-network specialist to fix your problem. If you decide to go to that out-of-network specialist, not only will your insurance not pay for anything, but that out-of-network specialist can actually bill you tens of thousands of dollars unless you have a prior agreement to pay a cash price. So please be careful and understand the limitations of every single plan And let me talk more about PPOs, EPOs, and HMOs. Most people do not know or understand the difference when they sign up for an EPO or a PPO plan. Most people know by now what an HMO is and how it's critically different than a PPO. But let me talk about EPOs for 1 second. This name, EPO, stands for an exclusive provider organization. The PPO, it's preferred provider organization. Exclusive for EPO does not mean anything that's, oh my God, is exclusive. Or doesn't mean it's a special plan or you're buying into something exclusive. Exclusive literally means you have less providers in that plan. It means restrictions and limited access to doctors and services. If you Google what is an EPO organization, it tells you it's a hybrid between an HMO and a PPO plan. So bottom line, it will be more affordable, but also you will get a lot less for your monthly premium, and the services and accesses that you get with a PPO plan will not be there. Usually, EPOs pay less, so less doctors are willing to accept them and be on their panels. Hence, you have limited access to care. Let's talk about an HMO. As everyone knows, HMOs are health managed organization, which means everything is under corporation control. Nothing happens with that type of plan unless you get referrals and approvals to see a specialist. You first have to see your primary care provider to get any type of service, even something simple like I have abnormal vaginal bleeding, I need to see an OBGYN. If you have an HMO plan, you first need to see your primary care and have an ultrasound and have a visit and then get referred to the OBGYN to have an ultrasound and to get a specialized consultation. This process can take days or weeks, which will, yes, delay your care significantly. There is another problem with an HMO organization. The doctors who are participating are being paid in advance, whether they see you or not. So when they get busy with other patients or PPO patients and their schedule is full, you will have to wait in line for an opening. And if I was a doctor that takes HMO, and I'm not, I don't take any HMOs in my private practice, I wouldn't accept a patient to make an appointment without first receiving the authorization from their primary care doctor. Because if you see a patient without an authorization, you don't get paid. So why would I select and reserve a time in my schedule for a patient that doesn't have an authorization, hoping that the authorization will come through while we wait for the appointment? It's unreliable. And there's a recent law that actually just got passed that restricts the waiting time that used to be many weeks to now no longer than 10 to 14 business days, if I'm not mistaken. So hopefully it will get better for the HMO patients. But it's decades in the making. Again, if you have a PPO plan, you can simply call the OBGYN in network with your PPO, make an appointment, and perhaps have an ultrasound done same day if the technology is available in your doctor's office. So I hope you understand the difference and the example that I used, which illustrates why a PPO will always be superior to an HMO or an EPO. Please know that Medicare acts like a PPO, but now there are many plans offering Medicare coverage through an HMO organization. And that actually might be the future, as it happened over a decade ago to Medi-Cal in California, which turned overnight into an HMO, assigning patients to a group or a specific primary care doctor, which means that you can't see anyone without seeing that doctor first. It's just more barriers to healthcare. But coming back to Medicare, many Medicare clients, without knowing or realizing what they do, sometimes they sign away their Medicare benefits to an HMO plan, run through United or through some other health insurance company, and select to have their Medicare run through an HMO organization, not understanding that they severely and seriously restrict their access to care and their benefits. More so, I've been confronted with this situation from one of my lovely 80-year-old patients. There are insurance brokers that I don't see it any other way, but they prey on older patients. Whether it's because they get a commission or why, it's not clear to me. But why would they call and hound these poor old men and women to try to get them enrolled in this plan? And they don't even understand that patients are signing out their benefits to this new insurance plan recommended by the broker as a cost savings, but they don't understand they're losing the doctors that they had in their plan. Now they can't see them. And these brokers tell them, hey, you're not going to lose your physician, which is a lie. But they tell them the new plan is a lot cheaper. It's going to save you money. And who does not want that? Yes, I want to save money. But that's another lie, because now these patients are forced to pay out of pocket cash to stay with the same doctor, with the same practice that they've had for decades. And sometimes patients don't even realize what happened. They show up, they see the doctor, and the front staff might not even be savvy enough to see the change. It allows the patient to go through. We bill the insurance. It comes up as an HMO. We're not in network. And we bill the patient. And then they get the bill. They don't realize that you now have to be responsible. When it's all said and done, it's not your plan that will pay the doctor. It's you who has to pay for doctor services. So to wrap it up, I want you to understand that if you're choosing a low deductible or a high deductible plan or an HMO or a PPO, please do so fully informed and planning accordingly. And please know that a PPO plan is always preferable to an EPO or an HMO plan. Another useful information that I want to just talk a little bit about is your coinsurance, which is anywhere between 10% for very good plans to 40%. That means you might have to pay 10, 20, 30, even 40% of your medical cost. So that means your plan will cover as much as 90% or as little as 60% of your medical cost. That is important to know, because in the case of a major surgery or admission to the hospital, if your bill is $50,000 or $150,000, 10% of that will be $5,000 or $15,000. But 40% of $50,000 is actually $20,000. Imagine you pay $1,000 a month or more for an insurance plan that also asks you to pay almost half of your hospital bill. That sounds like a racket to me. Imagine you might unfortunately get cancer, and your plan limit might be $1 million in expenses. I think that the new law has eliminated caps in healthcare, which used to be a big problem before. So it's at least one of the advantages that the Affordable Care Act has provided. But consider the fact that if you require extensive surgery, ICU care, chemo, or radiation, at some point your insurance will pay 60 to 90% of it. It still leaves you, if your total out-of-pocket of 10% of $1 million would be $100,000. Now, this brings me to my next piece of information that you should know, and you should ask your plan. What is my maximum out-of-pocket cost? This is what's very important to know when you sign up for a plan or you buy a plan, because this is very important in circumstances like this, when you have a serious medical condition that requires prolonged hospitalization, an expensive procedure, an ICU stay, a bypass surgery, a chemo session, or other expensive treatments. So always know what your maximum out-of-pocket is. Please ask when you buy your health plan. Many have been bankrupted by medical bills. And if you have a paying job, the hospital will come after you and expect payment for your share. And it won't be just like the doctors will send you to collections. And then if you don't want to pay, you just have a bad credit score. The hospital will actually sue you for your money. And it doesn't matter that the plan already paid them $250,000. If your portion is $50,000 or $100,000, they will come after you, and you have to know that and understand it. So all these numbers, deductible, coinsurance, maximum out-of-pocket, these are numbers you need to know when you purchase your plan. The important point I'm making here is that someone who understands the system and the limitations of what you get for your monthly premium versus someone who doesn't, that is going to determine not just the better health outcome It also means you, the savvy consumer who understands all these things I talked about, you can budget and plan for the unexpected. Someone who understands how to choose the right plan for them so it provides the coverage that they think they need. Someone who understands the limitations of their coverage, who will also budget for unexpected expenses or expenses not covered by the plan, but expenses that would provide optimal health and maintaining your health rather than losing it. That someone is a very smart medical consumer. I hope that you, the listener, have learned something new today and maybe have a better grasp on the complicated American healthcare system. However, the points I'm making here are valid for any healthcare system anywhere in the world. Because what I need you to know, and what you should know, is that the healthcare system that's run or funded by the government of any country, or a private healthcare system that is a corporation, they will only have one purpose, and one purpose only: be profitable or at least be solvent. Neither one of these, the government state-run system or the private corporation-run healthcare system, are going to have your best interest at heart. Neither one of these. Their purpose and their goal is to be profitable and make money to keep their investors happy and generate dividends. And if we talk about a state or a country government-run system, it needs money to keep employees on payroll and be able to afford the employee benefits. Think about this. No one other than you has your best interest as a priority. You, the patient, the medical consumer, have to take charge and understand the system that you're in. You have to know and learn how to navigate the channels. You need to understand the plan that you are opting in, that you're buying in. You need to understand its benefits versus its limitations. You need to understand clearly what your plan will pay and what the plan will not pay. And you need to be prepared financially to spend money out of pocket for maintaining wellness and preventing disease. Because no plan on the face of this earth yet has this goal and purpose for you, the consumer. Everything you hear, see, or read about quality improvement measures and cost-cutting savings are simply empty words to deceive you, the consumer, the patient, the one who is feeding all of this by buying these overpriced and undercovered insurance plans. I did say in my trailer episode back in August 2023 that I would like to start a revolution. It's impossible to revolt against something you do not understand. As a consumer, the only way you can revolt against this way of being, this system, is to simply stop buying into it. You can simply say no to overpriced, undercovered medical services offered through insurance plans. You can simply stop thinking of your insurance plan as being something that will be there for you. Now, let me clarify. It will unfortunately be necessary to have such an insurance plan if you require surgery or are diagnosed with cancer. Those type of expenses are highly costly. And without insurance, you most likely will not get the necessary treatment or risk financial insolvency if you're going to pay out of pocket. But you, the consumer, has to understand that this is exactly why you need medical insurance. You need it for very expensive surgery, for intensive care medical services, for expensive medication and treatments for cancer. So consider choosing a plan that has a lower monthly premium where you can budget to pay for other things out of pocket, to pay for other services that you actually need, that would keep you away from getting cancer, that would keep you away from the ICU. So consider choosing a plan that simply covers you for the services I mentioned above, the cancer, the ICU, the surgery, the bypass. But don't expect this same plan to cover medical services that you will require throughout the year to maintain your wellness and to feel good, or to invest in services that allow you to age well. These are two different things, and understanding the way the system operates needs to be crystal clear, or you will continue to be confused, frustrated, bitter, and yes, angry. As doctors, we can also say no and revolt on our own way by refusing to participate in these networks. We eliminate the middleman. Now we charge you, the patient, a reasonable fee for our services at the time the service is provided, which means more and more doctors will likely have to go out of network or implement a concierge fee. But this affects you, the medical consumer, which is very unfortunate. But know this, the doctors who invest in themselves and spend money, time, and sacrifice personal lifestyle to get additional training and education, and who will have something much more to offer than your regular corporation-run clinic, all of these doctors are now cash only. They stopped taking insurance. Both you, the consumer, the patient, and the doctors will have to come to terms with the way the healthcare system has changed in the past 20 years. There's a huge push for a universal healthcare system. We already have huge problems as it is. I don't really see how a universal system will help, because accessibility and availability of doctors is a huge problem with any universal government-managed healthcare system. I hope I didn't bore you too much with all of this information. And I'd like to talk more about doctor shortages and other valuable knowledge that I'd like to share with you. But for now, let me end here, and I'll come back next week with more information. And as always, thank you for listening. If you liked the information you heard and you'd like to hear more, please subscribe and follow my podcast. Should you find the content helpful to not just you, but possibly others, please share it and feel free to leave us a review. You are welcome to join the Facebook group, The Warrior Optimizing Wellness MD. I certainly hope that you've heard many things in this podcast that made you go, wow, I did not know that, or wow, I'd like to know more. So keep listening and I'll keep talking.